Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nowadays we are talking about how do we explore data. Once we, through questionnaire, observation or interviews, collected the data or information that we want, how do we explore it? Exploring means how do we codify it, how do we put it in the sheets of software where we want to do analysis like Excel or SPSS or reviews, and then how we start with the basics of analysis. That is making simple graphs, making simple tables, making simple descriptive statistics that make us understand our data. Number one. Number two, that help us see if there is anything that is outlier or if there is any error or omission in the data. Outlier is an observation which is actually an observation which is very far away from other observations that we have in the data. For example, it might be that the income range that we have asked from the people is moving from 20 rupees per month per person to 50 rupees per month per person. But there is an observation which says us 1 rupee, or there is an observation which says us 197 rupees. So we have to see, is it 19.7 or is it something else, or do we have mistakenly did some typo errors and all. So these are the things that help us explore our data that we have collected, and these are the things that help us understand our data from the very beginning also. What we can do easily is to see what is our data. For example, is it numerical or categorical? And then within these two broad categories, we can see whether it is ratio or continuous, discrete or whatever kind of data, if it is numerical. If it is categorical, is it a ranked data or dichotomous? And we have discussed in detail all these things. And why we have to know these? Because this has implication for the analysis, also implication for the softwares that we are using, and also implication for the basic simple statistics that we want to do. Secondly, we have also seen that coding is very important, and coding actually gives us an idea of how we can get our data in sequence, in continuous order, so that we can make sense out of it. We have to codify data, and coding is very important for our data analysis. We have to code yes or no dichotomous or closed-ended question, and we have to code the open-ended question. And in our previous lecture, we have seen that questions like what religion you belong to, marital status, gender, these were all closed-ended. Why closed-ended? Because either you get yes or no answer, or either you have given choices where you can just take. For example, in gender, one can be either male or female, unless your study is talking about transgenders. So in marital status, you can be married, you can be unmarried, and there are other choices like divorce, separated and all. And these are all known. So either one of them your respondent belongs to. Religion also, if it is a homogeneous society like Pakistan, either you can be Muslim, maybe Hindu or Christian. Why maybe? Because the population ratio of Hindus and Christians are very less than 5% maybe. So these are closed-ended questions, and we have had open-ended question also, and we know that it's better that we code them. So here in closed-ended question, we know the answers already. So either it can be male or female, either it can be married or unmarried, either it can be Muslim or Hindu. So we can codify them before already or before we go into the field. While for some open-ended question, because you cannot speculate the answers, so what one can do is to seek answers first, and then when you come back from the field getting answer to these open-ended questions, then you will be in a better position to group them together, and then you can codify them. And we have had an example of life insurance purchasing. So why or on what basis you will purchase life insurance? It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And we have seen number of answers that I've got new house, I've got new job, many other reasons. So these reasons you get when you ask this open-ended question, what provokes you to get life insurance, and then you will be in a better position to codify these questions. So coding is also very important. We have also discussed about frequency tables, and within frequency table we have discussed that frequency tables actually tells us about the occurrence of an event and its frequency. So in simple, frequency table gives us an event. So in our case it was 5% increase in earnings, 6%, 7%, 8% and 9%. Frequency 5% was 1, 2, 3, 2 and 1. And then percentage and cumulative percentage. So occurrence or frequency. So it basically gives us an idea that if we just leave this example and go back to this car example, this hatchback, saloon or estate example, then we see that we have given them this code of 1, 2 and 3. 1 is equal to hatchback, 2 is equal to saloon, 3 is equal to estate. And we can see that how many times, for example, here instead of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just assume that we have deleted this and we have put 1, 2 and 3. And our total respondents were, let's say, 15. So 1 was is equal to 3, 2 is equal to 6 and 3 is equal to 6. So now you will be in a position to calculate percentage of E, and now you can get cumulative percentage. If we combine first percent with second, we get first cumulative percentage. If we combine second with third, we get second percentage, and then we get the total percent, that is always equal to 100, which is this one. So cumulative percentage and events frequency of occurring is covered in frequency table. These are some of the basic things that we have to understand before going into the further details analysis of our data, further going into exploring our data. First have to see simple statistics of your observations, how do your data is behaving, what you can get out of it, does you will be in a position to answer the research question you have asked, and all these things you can do by simply exploring using these simple tools for your data, frequency tables and simple central tendency measures, variability measures and all that. And we have also seen in our previous lecture these measures of central tendency. I have bring them back because I just want to go through them again so that we can understand it properly. So we have three measures of central tendency is mean, median and mode, which is very simple. You have had from your basic statistics and mathematics that these are the three ways of calculating. Let's say we called it average. So mean is also average, median is somewhat different than average, and mode is another way of calculating the average of frequency. So central tendency is a measure of location, where in the data that particular observation is located. The common measure of central tendency include mean, median, mode. The mean is the arithmetic average of data distribution. So it can be arithmetic average of data distribution. So here is our mean. For example, we have 5 observations. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 observations, and we want to check the mean of these. So what we do, we basically add them. We add them and it becomes 20. But the total number of observations are 5. So if we divide them by 5, we get 4. 4 is basically the mean or arithmetic mean of these 5 observations. Total is 20, 4 is the average. Median is the midpoint of a data distribution. So how data is distributed, the midpoint is called the median. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we take these two separate and these two separately, the midpoint is 3. So 3 can be the median of this data. The mode is the most frequently occurring value in a distribution. There may be more than one mode in a distribution. The value that occurs frequently can be called mode. For example, we have an observation of 7 or 10 observations where we have one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 observation, and we can see that 2 is occurring more frequently. That is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these 2 is occurring more frequently. So 2 can be the mode of these observations. None of the other observation occurs more than once, so everyone is occurring once, while 2 is occurring 4 times. So this can be the mode of our central tendency. And the mode's definition says that it is the most frequently occurring value in the distribution. And 2 was more frequently occurring. So there may be more than one mode in a distribution. If your data set is long and instead of 2, 3 is also occurring many times, so that can also be your mode. When there is more than one score that has the highest yet equal frequency, the distribution is bimodal or multimodal. So if there are 2 observations that are occurring frequently, we call them bimodal. If there are more than 2 observations that are occurring frequently in your data, we call them multimodal data. Now we have measures of variability. How variable or how variant your data is. So we have 5 measures of variability, that is variance, quartile deviation, interquartile range, standard deviation, and range. So these are the measures of dispersion, and dispersion actually says that how spread is your data getting when it is plotted, when it is counting about the variability within the particular variable or within the data set that we have collected. Let us see how we define variance. The variance is a measure of a score dispersion about mean. So in our previous example, we have had, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have had somewhere here the average, somewhere here, this is the fourth point. So there was 2, 3, 6, 5. So this is above average, this is below average. So this is the kind of dispersion that we get, and that dispersion is above or below average, and that is about mean. So variance is measure of a score dispersion about mean. If all the scores are identical, if they are, let's say, all 4, the variance is 0 because they can be plotted on single point. The greater the dispersion of a scores, the greater the variance. The more dispersion the data gets, the higher will be the value of variance. Variance is used with interval and ratio data. That is very important, that we have to understand that interval or ratio data, these are both the kind of numerical data. So ratio and interval data gives us variance. For example, if we have this hatchback, saloon and estate example, we will not be in a position to get mean basically. We can get mean of how many people on an average go for hatchback, how many people on an average go for saloon, or how many people on an average go for estate, but we cannot get the average of the variable we are interested in, that is peculiar characteristics of car. So if we cannot get mean, we cannot see the dispersion about mean. So that is the variance. So that's how we are unable to get variance for, or relatively difficult to get variance for categorical data, but within numerical data it is easy to get variance for interval and ratio data. It is computed by summing up the squared distance from the mean for all cases and dividing the sum by total number of cases minus 1. So it's very simple to calculate. The formula is written here. How do we calculate variance? It's basically square distance from the mean. How far from the mean you are, you take a square of it and divide them by summing the total number of cases. How much number of total cases you have, you add them up, you minus 1 from them, and you get actually variance. Measures of variability, then we have a standard deviation. A standard deviation summarizes how far away from the average the data values typically are. A standard deviation, so if this is our average and we have values here and here, so it basically summarizes how far away from the average the data values typically are. So this distance is basically known as standard deviation. I'm not going into the details because these are the basic things that you understand from your statistical course, and you can also get details from your basic statistics course, which you can have one or the other way in your degree program. It is the most frequently used measure of spread because it improves interpretability by removing the variance square and expressing deviations in their original units. So it's frequently used because it actually removes the variance square and expressing deviations in their original unit. So how deviating they are in their original units from the mean value. It reveals the amount of variability within the data sets. So what it tells us about, it basically reveals the variability, how much variable our data is. And the standard deviation is calculated by taking a square root of the variance. So that's very simple. If you take a square root of variance, for example, a standard deviation is equal to a square root of variance. I think this is the formula, and this is what we use for a square root. I'm not sure, but I think this is the case. So square root of variance is basically the standard deviation. The range is difference between the largest and the smallest scores in the distribution. So it's very simple. We have 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 5, 1, 7, 6, 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 observation. And now you see the difference between the largest is 7, and smallest is 1, is equal to range. So 7 minus 1 is equal to 6. So range is basically showing the difference between smallest and largest value. The interquartile range is the difference between the first and third quartiles of the distribution. If we distribute quartiles into first, second and third quartile, the difference between first and third quartile of distribution is basically interquartile range. It is also called the mid-spread. Interquartile range is also called as mid-spread. The quartile deviation is always used with the median for ordinal data. We use quartile deviation for ordinal data. You have to know by now what is ordinal data, where it comes, and how we use them, and how it will be easy for us to calculate measure of variability, that is interquartile range, for ordinal data. Ordinal data, just for your own understanding, I just want to tell you that numerical and categorical, and within categorical we have ordinal data, that is ordered. You have to order them accordingly. It is helpful for interval or ratio data when the it is also helpful for interval or ratio data when the distribution is stretched by extreme values. So when there are extreme values within the interval or ratio data, then the interquartile range or simply the range is important to measure the variability of the data. Now exploratory and confirmatory data analysis. What is exploratory data analysis? We also know that there is a kind of a study which is called exploratory. So what is exploratory data analysis? It is the analysis that researcher has the flexibility to respond to the patterns revealed in the preliminary analysis of the data. If you do preliminary analysis and you find some patterns in the data, you can also talk about that in your analysis, in your write-up, in your results and discussion section, and that's called exploratory analysis. And that can be talking about, let's say, frequency table, that can be talking about variance, that can be talking about standard deviation, that can be talking about mean, minimum, maximum value. That is also talking about histogram. That is also talking about pie chart that we have somehow discussed, and we will definitely discuss it in today's lecture. So these are the things that actually helps you to explore your data. And talking about revealing patterns from these will help you to write an exploratory study about your data that you have collected, or the initial exploration of your data. Patterns in the collected data guide the data analysis. What are the patterns that you find in your data that will guide your analysis or suggest revisions to the preliminary data analysis plan. They will also help you, whatever preliminary data analysis plan you have, to rethink over it, whether these patterns gives you an idea that you have to change this way when you make this or that kind of table, two-way tables for example, then they'll give you an idea of how you can get more interesting results or revealing cases for your data. I've just talked a simple thing of two-way tables. So just for your understanding, I'm telling you that two-way tables is also one way of exploring your data. So for example, what is two-way table? If you want to combine three different characters or variables within one table. So what you basically have, you have choice of car, that is 1 is equal to hatchback, 2 is equal to saloon, and 3 is equal to state. This is one variable. Second variable is gender, that is male, female. 1 is equal to male, 2 is equal to female. And third variable is income, that is, let's say we make it rich and poor. So now we want to see how people behave when they want to buy a car. Here we have male, female. Somewhere in our previous lecture we have also discussed about that, but let us also see it again. Gender, and now we have rich and poor. So male rich will go for what? Hatchback, saloon, or estate, and then you count and tell through two-way table that how many of them, for example, out of total 25%, I'm just giving you an example, went for hatchback. 75% female rich goes for hatchback, so is equal to 1. Poor go for estate, that is equal to 3, so it is 75%. 25% is equal to 2, saloon. So this is how you can combine three characteristics in one table and you get some idea out of it. And that table actually gives you an idea that how rich male and female behave, how poor male and female behave, and how rich and poor male behave, and how rich and poor females behave when it comes to selection of a car characteristic. So this is how you can make two-way tables, and these two-way tables actually help you understand whether you have to continue with the preliminary plan of the analysis of your data, or you have to rethink it again. Patterns in the collected data guide the data analysis that we have already discussed, or suggest revision to the preliminary data analysis plan. This flexibility is an important attribute of this approach. So exploratory data analysis helps you to become a little flexible of rethinking your preliminary data analysis plan. While in confirmatory analysis, when the researcher is attempting to show causation, that is causal relationship, what causes what, confirmatory data analysis is required. Confirmatory data analysis is an analytical process guided by classical statistical inference in its use of significance and confidence. So we use level of significance and confidence interval. While in exploratory data analysis, we just draw graphs, we just draw tables, we do tabulation, we do two-way tabulation, We come up with mean, median and mode, we come up with variation, we come up with interquartile range and all that, but we didn't check their statistical significance through level of significance or through confidence interval. I'll not go into the details of significance level and confidence interval because you'll definitely see in your basic statistics course. But what I will say is that exploratory data is more about playing with your data so that you can get something out of it by taking a look at the patterns that the data is revealing, while confirmatory data is basically when you are done with your exploratory data and now you are in a position to do further analysis based on your exploratory data about the causation or causal relationship between one or the two or other variables. Then you will use confidence interval and significance level to do confirmatory data analysis for your data. So the visualization or data exploration and analysis is basically data visualization, an integral element in the data analysis process and necessary a step prior to hypothesis testing. So what is data exploration? Why you want to explore data? It's basically visualization of your data, which is integral part you do or as a researcher people do before testing hypothesis. Before you actually want to do confirmatory analysis, you do exploratory analysis. Why? You visualize the data through diagrams, tables, figures, and through measures of central tendency. That does it make any sense to see that data or not? So data visualization actually gives us an idea of whether to move further for testing our hypothesis that we have, which is built on our research questions and objective, or we have to rethink our preliminary data analysis plan. For example, we have frequency and percentage example with us, in which we have a TV program ABCD, and then we have radio program ABC, and then we have magazine AB, and then we have outdoor billboard. We have value, we have frequency, we have percent, we have valid percent, and we have cumulative percent. All the things we know. The only thing that we don't know is valid percent. How many of the cases are valid in case of missing cases? But our data says that the missing cases are 0 and valid or total cases are 100. So it means valid percent is equal to percent. So if you see it is 13, 13, 24, 24, 4, 4, 7, 7, 10, 10, and it is equal to 100. So these are various TV, radio and magazine programs for which we have frequency of occurrence, and based on that we have calculated the percentage and then the cumulative percentage. For example, frequency is 10. So TV program A is coded 1, B is coded 2, C is coded 3, 4, and so on. And now we have frequency. So TV program A has frequency of 10, whatever kind of data is collected. Program B has 8, program C has 7, 13, 24, 4, 11, 6, 7, 10. And now we divide the frequency with total number of observations and multiply them with 100, we get percentage of cases. So for example, in first we have 10, we multiply it with 100, we divide it with 100, and to get percentage we multiply it with 100, 100 cancels 100, so we get 10%. And if you see, this is 10%. And cumulative percent, we have seen that if you combine first and second, we get cumulative percentage, and that's how we move. And valid cases, we have already discussed that if there is something missing values, then valid percent is different than the percent which is frequently occurring cases percentage. So a frequency table is a simple device of arraying data. It basically arrays data in a way that you can understand that for each variable how frequent that variable value is occurring in your data analysis. It arrays category codes from lowest value to highest value with columns of a count, percent, valid percent. Valid percent is percent when missing data is extracted, and cumulative percent. So this is what frequency tables tells us. So the example that we had is actually AIDS research example, in which a TV ad or a magazine ad or radio ad has some impact or influence on the participants, and we have frequency of which TV ad has which kind of influence, and we actually saw the frequency occurrence of that. Although there are 100 observations, the small number of media placements makes the variable easily tabled. There are 100 observations, but we made a very simple small table based on frequency because it combined the observation within the unit values. So for example, instead of having 100 values, we actually give 10 value numbers to various TV and magazine and radio show, and seen from each observation how many numbers are frequently occurring, and then we get a simple, small and easily understandable table. We called it frequency table. So this is how simple exploration, simple frequency tables help us understand the long and huge data sets. So if you see 100 observation versus if you see just 10 observation with frequency of each value occurring in the table, then you will be in a better position to describe your data, to explore your data further, and you can reveal the patterns from your data. The same data are presented using a pie chart also on the next slide. So let's see what we can actually get. So we have color-wise distribution of various programs, and we have description here, and now here we have pie chart. So this is media or aid research, and then we have seen this one. For example, for TV A we have 10%, for TV B we have 8%, for radio program C 11%, outdoor billboard 10%, total 100%. And that pie chart has actually get pie of every share. So for example, the highest share is with radio program A, which is 24, and if you see, this is a huge triangle that we have, and the smallest is radio program B, which is 4 and which is just close to 8. It is a smallest triangle. So this is how pie chart actually helps us understand how frequently and how distributively each frequent value is coming in the data. So there is a small simple line written under the chart that data may be more readily understood when presented graphically. So even within table and graphs are readily understandable. And from this graph you can also see that this program has that much chunk in the media and that program has that much chunk in the media. So that's one of the important way of exploring your data using various means. For example, bar chart is also an important way of putting your data to make people understand. So what we did, it's simple graph of x and y axis, and we have actually percentage here, and we have media programs based on TV, radio and magazine on x axis, and we have percentage values here on y axis, that is 5, 10, 15, 20 and 25. And we have TV A, B, C, D, radio A, B, C, D and magazine A, B and outdoor billboards. And now based on the frequency tables percentages that we have calculated, we plotted each and every percentage, and now we can see that this is 10%, this is of course 7%, this is 6%, this is the highest 24% we have had, and this is also 10%. So these are the patterns that we get from our data analysis. We do frequency table, and from frequency table we can be in a good position to either make pie chart or to make bar chart, or from simple data that is available with us we can also draw bar chart and pie chart. Now we have histograms. So we have frequency here, and we have annual average purchases here. So there is another data set which tells us about annual average purchases, and we have frequency, so which can be actually counted through histogram. And this is how our histogram look like. And what is histogram? Is actually it's a graphical bar chart that groups continuous data values into equal intervals with one bar for each interval. So it groups continuous data. So histogram is basically used for continuous data, and that divides data into equal intervals. So you divide them into equal intervals, and then you give each interval a single bar, and then the software plots the data for your ease of understanding. So for example, average annual purchase of 50 has occurrence of, let's say, 13. So 130, for example, has a percentage of, let's say, 2 frequency, or 70 is occurring around 17 times. So this is how we can get our histogram, which is a graphical bar chart that groups continuous data into equal intervals with one bar for each interval, and that's how we make histogram. Histogram is the conventional solution for displaying of interval or ratio data. So histogram is used for interval or ratio data. That's also for numerical data. That histogram uses either numerical or interval data to display the data in a way that we can understand it. Histograms are used when it is possible to group the variables value into intervals. So if we can group the values into intervals, we can make a histogram. For example, one interval is 0 to 50, then we have 50 to 70, 70 to 90, then 100, 100 to 130, and then these are basically the interval values between two values, and that help us to make histogram that gives us an idea of how frequently one particular value is occurring in our data. So histograms are used when it is possible to group the variables value into intervals. A histogram is a graphical bar chart that groups continuous data values into equal intervals with one bar of each interval that we have already discussed. That this is the definition. It gives a unique bar to each value, and then it displays data on the graphical bar chart. A data analyst find histogram useful for two definite reasons. One is displaying all intervals in a distribution, even those without observed values. So even within two different distances, distributions, intervals, if there is a missing value, histogram helps us to plot that interval nicely. Examining the shape of distribution for skewness, kurtosis, and the modal pattern. Histogram also help us to see the distribution of skewness and kurtosis, and also the modal pattern, multimodal, bimodal, and we have seen that. So histogram, we have discussed that these are for data analysts, these present two important features or two important useful ways. One is that it displays all intervals in a distribution, even those without observed values. So it displays all intervals. What are these? For example, so we have interval from, let's say, 50 to 70, 90, and then so on till 190 to 2010. Suppose between 190 and 2010 we have some missing values, but it still displays that data. Examining the shape of distribution for skewness, kurtosis, and the model pattern. Mode we have already discussed. It can be bimodal or multimodal, and you know now that mode means that a mode of any is a measure of central tendency, which is actually more frequently occurring value within the observations of any particular variable or data we have. Or if there are more than one values that are occurring more frequently in the data, we call it bimodal. If it is more than two values which are occurring frequently in the data or the variables, we called it multimodal. So histogram gives us the distribution pattern, and I have already drawn that it tells us that whether it is skewed distributed, normally distributed, like if we have this kind of distribution, or we have this kind of distribution, or we have this kind of distribution. Where what kind of distribution we can have? It is left skewed, right skewed, or normally distributed. So histogram also help us to see what kind of distribution our data actually have. Histograms are it basically the values of average annual purchases that we have plotted in the histogram variable presented in the figure were measured on a ratio scale and are easily grouped. So these are basically average annual purchases. Average annual purchases, and these are the ratio scales. So we can easily plot them on our histogram. So for example, this is 50, 70, 90, 100, and it goes up to 2010. So the values of average annual purchases variable presented in the figure was measured on a ratio scale and are easily grouped, and we can group them easily. Histograms are not useful for nominal variables that has no order to its categories. If there is a variable which is nominal variable, then we will be not in a position to plot a histogram for that particular variable. So we have to understand that histogram is used only for displaying data which is having interval distribution, and it also helps us understanding skewness, kurtosis, and model pattern. And it can be used for ratio scale, which can be easily grouped, but not for nominal variables or scale, which is difficult to order for its categories. And by now you definitely know what is nominal variables. So you have to make sure that these simple definitions you must remember, so that when you start your data analysis, you have in your mind that things are on your way, you can easily understand them. And it's not that you don't know what is nominal variable and then you're trying to plot it using histogram, then you will not get histogram done and you waste your time and mind also. So these are the things that we have to understand. Before I finish that, I'll try to summarize the things that we cover under data analysis, exploration, coding, and all. We started with when we are done with the data collection. So we have seen that we have to verify data within field or when we are there. So within field we can actually do recalling or re-interviewing. Recalling when you are a field supervisor and your research assistants are coming back in the evening from data collection from the field, then it is better for you after a day or two or after a certain time period, then you can ask them if there is things that is unclear to you. If you don't ask them, then in the later stages, when you don't understand the meanings of what they have written, why they have written and what is meant by this or that particular symbol, then you will get a little problematic. But if you think that the data is not behaving the way it must be, then what you do, you basically choose as a rule of thumb 10% sample, you go back again in the field and you collect or re-interview 10% of the sample from your total sample. And this is how you can try to reduce biases from your data as much as possible. The second stage is that when the data is collected, you get an editor to do data editing. And that can be done if the data is simple and easy with one editor, but if data is more complex and large, then you can use more than one editors at the same time. What you can do basically is you can group your questionnaires into 1, 2, 3 or as many groups as you want, and give each editor one group, and then they have to do editing of that particular group. And based on that, what they have to do is to see whether it makes sense or not, and if it is not, if they are suggesting any change, they have to provide their initial and date, and they have to patternize it with a particular formulation, with a particular pattern, so that you can understand where the changes were made, when and by whom. So this is how you can get your data edited. Then we have seen about data coding. So first thing that we saw was data editing when we are collecting data within field, and second is when it is already with you, then it is by data editor or data editors. So data editing within field, so recalling or re-interviewing. And data editors, we will see that one editor can do the job or two or more editor can do the job. And then we have coding of data. We have to see whether we have coded nicely or not. What we have to say is basically closed-ended question and open-ended question. So are they clearly codified or not? Are they easily understandable or not? And once we understand that, now we are in a better position to do data exploration, data analysis. And within data analysis, we have seen either we can group the data into frequency tables, either we display the data in bar charts or pie charts, or we get the measure of central tendency or measure of variability. Within measure of central tendency, we have seen mean, median and mode. And mean is basically the simple average. Mode is basically the most frequently occurring value, and median is the center of the total data that we have with us. So if we have 5 value, the third value is basically median. And these details you can see in any of the basic statistics book. So what does this central tendency tells us? It's basically helpful to understand the data spread, and then we will be in a bit better position to see the variability or the variance of the data. And within variability, we have seen variance, measure of dispersions, we have a standard deviation, we have range, we have interquartile range, and these kind of things. And we have discussed them one by one. How do they calculate, for which data they are useful, and how helpful they are. After going through these two, we have also seen that we have various bar charts, diagrams, pie chart to explore our data further. And we have seen through pie chart, frequency tables and histograms that data can be explored in one or the other way that help us understand how do we basically see the data, what is our preliminary guide to analyze the data and explore it. Does that analysis help us to change our way of thinking about the data and the nature of our data that we have collected, the relationships that we can understand, and we can have either exploratory or confirmatory, or we can do first exploratory and then confirmatory. And confirmatory data, we have seen that it actually is dealing with the causal relationship that we are trying to see through our research questions and objectives by using basic classical statistics techniques like significance level and confidence interval. And these are the simple steps that lead us to more complex multivariate regression or any other kind of data analysis once we are done with exploring our basic data set. So if we are in a good position to explore our data nicely, then we will be in a position to see the problems in our data, errors, we can point them out, we can see outliers, we have already discussed, and will be in a position to make our data edited easily and nicely. Once we are done with that, then we will be in a better position to do whatever kind of analysis we have in our mind. And once we are ready for that, we can play with the data as much as we can, and we are in a position also to answer the question of research that we had in our mind previously and also meet our research objectives. We stop here with the data quantifying, with the data orientation, with the exploration and confirmatory analysis of data, and now we will be in a better position to see what we can do if our data is qualitative. First we have seen quantitative data, and within that we have seen how to do exploratory analysis, how to do coding of the data and editing of the data. And once we are done with that, now we will see how to analyze qualitative data in our next lectures. And we will see the difference between qualitative and quantitative data and the analysis of these data and how helpful it would be for our research write-up. I stop it here. I say thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you in next lecture. Khuda Hafiz.